everybody, and welcome back to the Pup and Away podcast. My name is Steph. I am your pro dog mom. I'm also a dog trainer, certified canine behaviorist, certified canine nutritionist, and the very proud owner of Pup and Away in San Antonio, Texas, where we specialize in pet care with the behavioral edge. That is all kinds of different socialization services for dogs on all parts of the socialization spectrum. We've got boarding, and of course, we've got training. And today I'm joined by Miss Elaina Stanley. Her and I met 2 years ago, I guess almost 3 years, 2.5 years ago. We both have the same certification in nutrition. And so we went to a summit. It's like their yearly little conference that they have. It was the first one. And we happened to meet in the lobby of the hotel. And we've been friends ever since. We went to the second annual conference together and planning on going on the third annual conference together as well this year. So Elaina, tell us a little bit about you, how you got started, where you located, and what are you doing?
I am Elaina Stanley, of course. I own Three Happy Hounds in Fernley, Nevada, and Three Happy Hounds is a store for dogs and cats, but we hyper focus on nutrition as well as the overall well-being of the pets. So we help empower pets or pet parents to do the best that they can with their pets. So there's a lot of stuff out there that they need help with that they don't know or understand, and so we kind of are right there for them. So I got started. We've been open since 2018, and before that I was a professional pet photographer.
I always forget that part about you.
Yeah, so that was really fun. I really enjoyed that time in my life, which brought me to a lot of connections of other people, including my former manager who owned a training facility in Salt Lake City, Utah, and she hired me on as kind of a manager of sorts because she wasn't in the facility as much as she would like to be. And so I learned a lot through training and, a little bit on the retail side. Before that, I worked at Nordstrom for 16 years, so a lot of retail background for sure. But I started getting into my love for pets and their wellness, starting with the training facility and the pet photography. And it morphed from there. We always have a dog that kind of puts you on that path, and I've had a few of them, and so here I am. Yeah, just still doing what I love, and I love impacting the pets in a positive way. So
That's great.
yeah.
Awesome. I mean, having a pet retail business for 7-ish years is amazing. So kudos to you. And it sounds like it keeps on growing because you also just implemented a new service called Pippa's Way. So tell us what that is. And you also have a different education that allowed for you to open that up. So kind of tell us about that experience and then kind of what it has allowed for you to do.
Yeah, so I am a certified, as well as a nutritionist. I have several different certifications in pet nutrition, but I also took a holistic pet health coaching course, which was very in-depth with Dr. Ruth Roberts. It is based off of Chinese veterinary medicine, and so we learned a lot about the body, the physiology, and a lot of in-depth on a lot of the healthcare challenges that pet parents are facing today. So I earned that certification just in January is when I graduated, and thank you. So that allowed me to, in my store, and actually outside of my store, I can actually take clients from all over. It allowed me to implement a program, which was Pippa's Way, and that is just more of a comprehensive, more in-depth, one-on-one consultations, and the programs are anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks. It just depends on what we're working with. But we work with dogs that have like major allergies or kidney disease or IBD, like all of these things that are such challenges nowadays, and pet parents have a lot of questions, and
Mm-hmm.
they see their vet, and their vets can only see them for 15 minutes at a time, and so they are slamming out this information, and looking at blood work for 2 seconds and making a determination because they have to. I mean, they
Mm-hmm.
just don't have the time to spend with these parents. So they leave, those pet parents leave super confused and overwhelmed, and they don't know where to turn. And
Mm-hmm.
so basically, we are a liaison between the pet parent and the veterinarian. So we do partner with the veterinarian. I will disclose, or I will say that I am not a veterinarian. I don't practice or diagnose or treat any diseases with your pets. However, I will help you learn about it and understand what is going on with your pet, and also make some suggestions that will help, that may, help extend the life of your pet, or help treat the disease in a more holistic manner,
Mm-hmm.
or like through food therapy or supplements. And I can also help you read your lab work, things like that. So
That's so cool.
um,
Because lab work is
yeah,
weird.
it is weird, and um, depending on where the lab or how they report it, it differentiates, and
Mm,
not, even though they're all kind of the same. Like, if you don't know what you're looking at, you don't know what is right, and even though something may be low, it may not be as, like, for example, with my personal dogs, two of them have consistently low BUN and creatinine levels.
mm-hmm. Which are
Well,
liver enzymes.
yeah, kidney.
Kidney
So
enzymes.
yeah,
Okay.
and so any conventional vet would look at those values and say, "Oh my God, your dogs are in kidney failure."
Mm.
Well, not necessarily, because they are fresh fed, and so blood work is based on kibble
Mm.
values. So
Like the
so
standard that we're looking for. Okay.
yeah, so when they came up, like, what the normal range is for whatever blood work panel you're looking at, they are all kibble fed dogs. Well, it is known that, the studies, there's a lot of research out there that say that because that blood work is based off a kibble fed dog versus a raw fed dog, the values can vary quite significantly. So in
Right.
that respect, we go, okay, well, we're going to monitor them, and we're going to test values again
Right.
in like 6 months. And really, they kind of, for the last 2 years, I've been doing this with them just to make sure that they're not in kidney failure, and they're holding the same. So
Right.
that's their norm.
Right.
So, but if
Finding your
you're
dog's individual baseline is important.
right, so that's where I feel like, pet parents can get overwhelmed, and things can be sound really scary if the vet isn't really understanding, or is in so much of a hurry that they're just automatic. Yep, that's kidney
Yeah.
failure, and here's all the meds that go with it.
Right. I think,
Uh,
like, to speak on that, right? Because the vets, you kind of mentioned, like, they're in a rush. A lot
mhm.
of them, I forgot what the stat is, because every time I read the stat, it's gone up significantly. But the percentage of vets and vet clinics that are actually now corporate owned
Yeah,
is, like, I
it's
think in the
astronomical.
80s, maybe. I think even Tony told me, I did a podcast with Tony Shalasky. I don't know if you're familiar with her, a couple weeks ago. I think she even told me like low 90% of vet clinics are industry corporate owned. And of
Um,
course, they're churning, they're churning vet
yeah,
people out. They're trying to hit numbers. They're trying to see as many clients as possible, which means us, the pet parents, get less time. And I've spoken about my not most recent, but one of my most recent experiences with Sully's vet. Actually, she's not corporate owned, but she just like rattles off information at you, kind of like what you said. And me, as someone who is semi knowledgeable, right? I don't know everything, but I think I know a little bit more than the average pet parent. I had to really stop and like, whoa, like ask questions, because she was just like, this is that, and like, because I'm seeing this, you need this, and because of that, your dog should have this. And then we're just like throwing things at the window or at the wall and just seeing, kind of what sticks. And to me, everything that she was giving me was just a band-aid, and not really kind of getting down to like why is this problem even happening in the first place. Instead, she just was like, here's an antibiotic. Like, okay, but like, where is this coming from? And you don't even know if it's an infection. And so like, that was really frustrating. And it sounds like, you can break things down with the client, and then kind of offer them a couple of different alternatives to try, or, work with the vet to kind of help educate the pet parent a little bit more.
Right. And that is so true. I want to say that the vets, I call it checkbox medicine, especially in the corporate, like, so if you have this symptom, feed this food or give this medicine. That's literally what they have to go by. So they don't even really have to think too much anymore, because they don't have time to think or do the research or anything like that. And it's not necessarily their fault. They are very overwhelmed, and they don't have a lot of time to spend with these pet parents. So, and the pet parents don't know what questions to ask either, right? So, I mean, they're not vets, or, and not all parents are as fortunate or have the time themselves to do all the research to see what's going on with their pet. So by coming to me, I can say, okay, so I know what questions to ask in order for me to better help these parents. Then, and also to start getting the pet parent to think a little bit more proactively, and what are some things that we can do, through food therapy or through, herbal supplementation, CBD, any of those things where you can start healing that pet from the inside, and not just putting a Band-Aid on it, because you really need to find out what the root cause is in order to truly help that pet. But, a pet with skin allergies, for example, they're itching. We feel terrible when we are for our pet. It's driving us crazy because we're not sleeping because they're itching in the middle of the night as well. So we want it to stop, right? Well, in my book, we need to find out, well, what is causing the dog to itch?
Absolutely.
By the time we see the itch, I mean, they are on fire inside, and I can't imagine living like that. But when you take your dog to the vet, their solution isn't, they just want to help you and help your pet as quickly as possible. So their solution is, okay, we got an itch, we got an Apoquil, or we got a Cytopoint. So we're going to put that on, and we're not going to address what is causing that.
Right.
And instead, we're just going to put a Band-Aid on it. Okay, well, an Apoquil or Cytopoint, they're immune suppressant, so they're going to shut that immune system down. Then, when you go off of that, so the Apoquil puts all the immune system on vacation. Then you come back from vacation because you're off the meds, and meanwhile, while the soldiers are all on vacation, the bad guys are in there running amok and causing all, and leaving your body susceptible to all these other diseases. So when the soldiers come back from vacation, they're like, "Whoa, what the heck is going on here?" So when they come off that, things are 100 times worse.
Absolutely.
And so then we're back on the Apoquil because they came off of it, they got itchy. So I think a lot of people think that's the solution, when really, if we get down into it, it's probably a leaky gut, food intolerance or sensitivity. So we gotta really look at that internally, what's going on with the dog. And our vets just either don't have the time or the time to even research all of the new information that's even out there.
Right. And it's hard, right? It's supposed to be hard for us to find the root of the problem, because there are so many systems within our body that are, working with each other and having this, synergistic, they're working together, right? And so when one is off the rails, it's going to affect the other. And of course, we experience lots of different things, especially our dogs, by the food that we eat, what's in the environment, seasonality, different things like that. And, Cytopoint and Apoquil do have a space, but it should be a temporary space. It should be something to give your dog immediate relief, but while we continue the conversation as to what is going on. My parents' dogs, I have two schnauzers, and they also have two schnauzers. We're schnauzer freaks. And so one of them was constantly going and getting Cytopoint. And in my family, they're very proud of me, don't get me wrong, but they don't really take me very seriously when it comes to my profession. And so I finally asked, I was like, let me help you, like with my nutrition certification, let me help you. So he was going every, I think, 3 months to get a Cytopoint injection, which is a lot. And so we switched him over, we got him off the kibble. We got them. My parents were like, okay, if we're going to do this, we're going to go all in. So they went all in doing a DIY raw food. I put together a plan for them. That dude hasn't had a Cytopoint injection in over a year.
See, that's fabulous.
And he'll get itchy sometimes. Right now we're realizing, okay, because it's also a multi-factor, right? It's not just one thing. It could be a bunch of things. And so we do see seasonality to it, but because his itching isn't as bad as it used to be, we can now manage it with something other than getting a Cytopoint injection. And it was hard to figure that out, because I'm not the one with the white coat. And of course, my parents were trusting the people with the white coat, and they did see that immediate relief with the with the Cytopoint. And so it was kind of hard to talk them off of that ledge until I told them, this is why you should consider not giving it to them, because my parents weren't given that education. All they saw was, here is something that is helping my dog feel relief and feel comfort. They weren't told the side effects. They weren't told that it's an immunosuppressant. They weren't told that, there's other really big risks. I'm more knowledgeable about the Apoquel side effects, but I'm going to guess that Cytopoint's pretty much the same, right? You get higher rates of cancer. I'm more about the behavioral stuff. We do see a higher rate of aggressive tendencies whenever dogs are fresh off of a Cytopoint or an Apoquel administration, injection, whatever, dosage, whatever it might be. So,
Can you imagine, you feel one way? I mean, you're feeling a sense of relief, because you're not itchy all the time, you're not on fire. But when you start coming off of that, can you imagine the overwhelm your whole entire system feels because it's been shut down?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it comes back to life and you're like, whoa, what is happening? And so then you immediately have these symptoms of itchiness and inflammation. I mean, that inflammation's probably still there. It's not gone away. It's just still there, building, uncontrollable, and no help, no backup support. Your poor organs are in overdrive trying to filter all this junk out, because we're probably still feeding the same junk that is causing the problems, and we're, environmental. We live in a toxic world. I don't care where we live. It's a toxic world. I mean, our soils, the air we breathe, the water we drink, all of it is, it's just toxic. So, on top of that, we gotta help support these guys, because by the time we see the symptoms, they've been in distress for a really long time.
Yeah. And I mean, us too, right? I mean, our dogs are going to be, they're just bigger sponges and soaking up all that stuff. All of that stuff is really impacting us as well. And that's kind of how I started my journey, was kind of looking at things from the human perspective, and then reading oh my gosh, how much more it affects our dogs. And then that's why I really took the turn into we got to look into this more holistically and clean and less processed. I'm going to assume, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the majority of clients that you work with, what seems to be their issue? Do you have a lot of clients with skin issues, or would you say that you have more clients with I don't know?
No, I want to say that by the time they come and see me, it's usually skin issues or allergies. And that's
Misdiagnosed allergies,
yeah. So, I do get some kidney cases or some IBD. So really with skin allergies, that's the biggest one, and that's usually, twofold. It's either a food intolerance, or leaky gut, or a combination of both. I actually assume both. Or, and the other thing along with that is a lot of yeast. So, you get that ear issue going on, they're scratching their ears and it's full of black gunk and it smells terrible. And then of course their feet, that paw chewing like crazy. And That Frito smell is not a normal smell on your dog's
It's
feet.
cute and social media loves it, but you should question it.
It's not a normal thing. So skin allergies are the biggest thing, and that involves, that's a long haul, and a lot of people don't realize that it's taken a long time for your dog to show these symptoms, because that's the body's cry for help at that point. We don't see what's going
Right.
on inside. They can't talk to us or tell us. So by the time we see it manifest in the skin, it's the itching, it's the yeast, it's the red hot spots, it's all of these things that, just yuck. It's just, yeah, your dog is not healthy with your skin, right? By the time
Yeah.
you see it through the skin. So I always address it with I always do an intolerance test first, because I feel like that shortens the curve. And if a pet parent doesn't really want to do that, whether it's because of expense or whatever, then we try to go with like the lesser known triggers. Definitely corn, soy, wheat, we stay away from. Chicken generally, but also I'm seeing a lot of beef allergies. And also, what people also don't know is synthetic vitamins and minerals. I am seeing a ton of dogs really sensitive and can't tolerate that anymore. So, and
Like
that
kibble is
is
full of
in
that.
kibble. Yeah, I mean, they have to, because they obliterate any nutrients as they make it. So they got to spray that crap back on. So, and the body doesn't know what to do with it. It can't recognize it. It's not a real food. And so it's like, here, we'll just put that over in the liver and whatever, and they'll hold on to it till we figure out what to do with it. But then we're feeding all these other toxins. We're vaccinating, we're doing heart, flea and tick, and
On
sort
a
of
regular basis.
constantly, yeah, we're constantly bombarding the poor little bodies, and they don't know what to do. And so the body's in overdrive, and we're like, hey, well, here's some Apoquel, send everybody on vacation, and we'll hope for the best.
Right. And then the whole cycle just starts all over again because we
Right.
didn't get to the root
And
cause
we're
in the
not
beginning.
addressing, right, yeah, so, and then we're feeding crap food. So, and I'm not saying all kibble is crap. There is a lot of crap out there, for
Right.
sure. Anything that you find in a big box or a Walmart or whatever is generally going to be from one of the big five food manufacturers, and I don't trust them as far as I can see them.
Right. Absolutely.
You know.
You talked about an intolerance test. Tell us a little bit more about like that process. What does that look like from the client's perspective?
So there's a few out there. Um, in my store, we use the Glacier Peak intolerance test. Super easy. It's a hair and saliva test. Um, there are some tests from Innovative Pet Lab that are very cool. They do a gut microbiome check, which is so important. And they can do a complete health check. So they're a lot more in depth, but they're a lot more pricey. So they're fabulous. I can't wait to start using them. I just learned about them not a few weeks ago, but the Glacier Peak intolerance test is super easy. They send the report, or you buy the kit in store, hair, saliva, send it to Glacier Peak. They do their analysis, send you your email report back, and everything's marked either high sensitivity, moderate, or nothing. So, and they do environmental as well as other toxins, and then food. So, and they break it down by protein and veggies and all of that. It's really easy. And like I said, it shortens that curve. So I know when we're coming up with a plan for your dog to start healing, to what foods do we need to avoid, what we can. And then I also, depending on what's going on with that dog, I throw in a little bit of the Chinese veterinary energetic principles. So, if we need to do some, generally a dog with those type of skin allergies need a lot of cooling proteins. So we'll, make sure that they're not sensitive to any of those cooling proteins before we put them on it. And then we build around that. So that is extra support. It's bringing down the inflammation. It's helping the body start the healing process. And then once we do that, then we go into a leaky gut protocol. And that is just healing the gut from the inside, because the gut is pretty much the second brain. So we need to heal that. And once we do that, you get those two major things done, two or three, you start seeing a lot of differences. And this is where the pet parent gets excited. They're like, okay, this is working. What happens sometimes is because the animal has had such a rough time, especially with a dog with a lot of yeast, they'll get worse before they get better, because the body's detoxing, right? It's just shedding all that junk out, trying to clean house, and people are like, oh my gosh, it's not working. They, give up too soon, and that breaks my heart. But it's really hard to, pet parents are busy too, right? They, unless they have the time and the financial resources to keep going down this path, sometimes it can get a little taxing in a lot of ways. So, we work with where they're at and what we can do. So, but the basic protocol is those maybe, diet change, the intolerance test, and then doing the leaky gut protocol.
Is there a difference between an intolerance, a sensitivity, and an allergy?
Yes, there is. A true allergy would be like, for example, I'm allergic to walnuts and pecans. So if I eat those, my airways swell up and close, and I'm in the ER. If I don't die on the way because I can't breathe, I'm in the ER getting a epinephrine shot to try to open those up. That's an allergy. Like, I have an immediate reaction. An intolerance test, or a food intolerance, is the body doesn't know what to do with it. So, for example, and most food intolerances are because they have a leaky gut. That is where the gut lining has all these little tentacles, for lack of a better word, that kind of seal in all of the stuff in the stomach and let in all the nutrients that are supposed to go into the body. When those gaps become too big, then it actually, all that stuff, extra proteins and things that aren't supposed to be there, the synthetic vitamins and minerals, all of those things go into the bloodstream, and the little immunity soldiers are like, hey, what are you doing here? And they are constantly fighting that, and that creates the inflammation and whatever, all of those things. So once we start healing that leaky gut, then the body isn't as reactive. So, and interestingly enough, the body knows what to do with real food versus fake food, ultra processed food. So, like, a kibble is super processed, right? You could feed a kibble-based food, like chicken, for example, or even, let's go with the non-stereotypical allergy food. We could do like a pork. You could feed real pork and have that dog not react to it, because it's a real whole pork, real food, versus the pork kibble. The body was like, that's fake, I don't know what to do with that, so we're going to react to it. So we've seen a lot of changes where a dog that is allergic to a chicken based kibble and eat real chicken, like what we would eat, and not have a reaction to it. So there is a difference for sure, and the body knows it. They know that it's whole, real food versus ultra processed and not real. So yeah, there is a difference. But as far as like that's the difference between a food intolerance, and a true allergy. Yeah.
And it's interesting because, like, intolerances, they don't have a big slap in your face kind of like manifestation. Sometimes it is over time, or sometimes your dog has to have, that one thing and it build up in the system a little bit before you start to notice, like, oh, okay, now I'm seeing other symptoms, or, things that it might be. Some people think like loose, watery stools is normal. It's not, right? They think like, oh, my dog just has a sensitive stomach. That could actually be a symptom that your dog has an intolerance to something. And it's important for us to know what those things are. And I get it. Like, the intolerance test obviously is another expense, but I actually did it on Sully and it wasn't that expensive. And it
No.
does shed a lot of light as to what the heck is going on. And so, like, even doing Sully's, I should have actually, hold on. I think I printed it. I'm going to go grab it real quick. Okay. It's all crappy looking by now because I spilt water on it so many times. But so like Sully, for example, I'm still learning about the energetics, but I believe that he is a warm to hot dog. So I try to feed him cooling proteins, right? And so like lamb is one that I like to feed him, and apparently he's got a mild intolerance to that. So knowing those sorts of things, getting something that, the biometrics from the hair was able to fully tell you really can help the process along instead of throwing all these bunch of things and having more time to, did it work? Did it not work? Is this the thing that's causing it? Is this not the thing that's causing it? It really does help to kind of bring all those things down. I found out that he had a high sensitivity high sensitivity to chicken, to emu, which I mean, I'm never feeding him emu. The
I think
things that are on
there's
here are
horse
great.
on there too. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they get really, really in depth here. I do wish my one small critique about this is like mushrooms was all lumped into one.
Yeah, so they have actually changed that. So
Oh,
now they exclude in parentheses except for medicinal mushrooms. So
yeah, it says
when
mushrooms,
they
all
yeah,
including medicinal, is what his says.
that's the older one. So the new
Okay,
ones they except for. So they are
gotcha.
I think they got a lot of questions on that. Because
Hmm.
there's a lot of benefit to medicinal mushrooms and they're very healing. And that is one of the things that I always usually prescribe or
Right.
prescribe, I'm not supposed to say prescribe, that I suggest,
Yeah, recommend.
recommend, in part of that protocol, one of the supplements that is very, very useful. And, I take him myself too, just
Yeah,
because why
yeah.
not? But yeah, so the newer ones, and, that also brings me to another point. I always suggest, like, after we've been on a food therapy and we've been doing these supplements and we've been, working the protocol or the program or whatever you want to call it, I'll have them retest, like in 6 to 8 months, the intolerance test because it can change because we're
Mm.
healing. So, and a lot of people don't realize that it's not a life sentence. But I will say, if a dog comes to me and they are having skin issues because of the diet that they're currently on, which is an ultra processed kibble, most of the time, there's no going back. You don't get the dog better and then go back and feed the kibble. You're gonna go right back to where you are,
Right.
and
This is how we got
you're
here in
not
the
doing,
first place.
yeah, you're not doing any favors for the animal. And so I think it's really, I always disclose that. I'm like, once you go this way, it's forever. You don't
Yeah.
get to go back. I mean, there
Interesting.
are extenuating circumstances, like you lose your job or whatever, and I get that. I
Right.
understand that. But there's options. There's
Hmm.
not just, you don't go back and get the bag of Beneful
Oh
and
boy.
call it a day, or Roy. I was going to say Roy. Um, but you're not going to go back there. There are good grades. There's better grades of kibble that we can recommend. Do I want you to go down that path if we've already been feeding a fresh diet and your dog is thriving? Not really,
Right.
but there's things we can do to balance it out. And
Right.
life happens, and I totally understand that. And families get busy, and it is what it is. So my job is to figure it out and or help you figure out what the best solution works for you and your circumstances. So there's definitely room for working that out. So it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be all or nothing for sure.
Absolutely. Oh, I want to point out another thing because they're, like you said, they test for a lot of different stuff, and I'm actually really glad that I grabbed this. They test for cigarette smoke, down feathers, tobacco, asphalt, electronics. So they also
Yeah.
look into like the cell phones, portable phones, computers, things like that. Mouse fur, wool, different stuff. Have you ever seen a test come back where the dog was sensitive to electronics?
I think I've had a couple. And, I don't know that I have actually addressed that with any of my pet parents, and I
Sure.
probably should have that conversation because, we know that all of the electronics produce those magnetic
EMFs and
field
all that
like
kind of stuff.
waves, yeah,
Yeah.
and so and it does affect our pets and their sleep and their health, and it affects ours as well. But yeah, I haven't really gone down that path with my pet parents, probably also because I'm not 100% versed in that, like,
Sure.
except for, I know it's suggested to turn everything off at night so everything can be, you know you can start clearing out that bad energy or whatever it is, and
Right.
real life that doesn't happen. So
Yeah, I gotcha. Yeah, my husband would
so
kill me if I turned off the Wi-Fi at night.
right.
Like literally. His work definitely depends on the Wi-Fi. We have
I
like
know.
we have like business level Wi-Fi in our house. Cause
Yeah,
like,
and seriously, it would be my total luck that I would shut that off, and then nothing would work the next day.
right.
It wouldn't turn back on like it's supposed to, or something like that. So
And that's like one of the questions that I get asked, right? Because I am a very crunchy person, if you guys have not recognized that by now. And so, one of the not kickbacks that I get, but just like, well, everything is going to be bad for you, right? The water's terrible, the soils are depleted, everything, right? Like, what's the point? And like, the point is, like, I can't control everything, or there's going to be things that I choose not to control, right? Like, for example, the Wi Fi is going to stay on overnight. But if I can also help to decrease the load that my body and my pet's bodies are feeling in other ways that are easier to manage, I'm going to do those sorts of things, because not doing nothing is not the right answer either, in my opinion.
absolutely, I think there's a happy medium to everything. Like, my job is to meet the pet parents where they're at and
Yeah.
finding out what the what they can do, what they are willing to do, what they
Yeah.
can afford. All of those things matter. And there's not a cookie cutter plan for every dog. They're individuals, and they are going to require something a little bit different. It may work for one dog, and it may not work for the other. So we really,
Absolutely.
yeah, we do what we can, and what we have the control over. Like, berries, for example, are a great addition to a bowl, but we also know that they can be very full of glyphosate and all of those other bad stuff. So if you do a vinegar soak for 20 minutes, it's going to remove 95% of all that gunk. And then you can feed it to your dogs and feed it to yourself and your family. And that's something easy you can do, right?
Right.
So it's little things like that we are in control of, that we should be doing, instead of worrying about
Everything and anything.
everything. Like, if you're trying to upgrade your cleaning products, do one at a time when you buy it the next time. So it's just little things that add up over the
Yeah.
course.
Absolutely. And
So
again, that's how I started, right? When I cleaning
yeah,
products, I took a look into those and I was like, holy crap.
oh yeah,
And just, changed. The funny thing is, I now have one product that has replaced all of my products. I use Branch Basics. I don't know if you're familiar with that one, but
no,
it's a concentrate, and you dilute it with water depending on what you're going to be using it for, right? But I use it for my kitchen, my bathroom, my laundry, pretty much everything. But
you're gonna have to send me that info because
yeah,
that
I
sounds
love that.
great.
So I think we kind of hit on this a couple of times, right? We definitely are in the camp that feeding the freshest food that you can is the
Right.
best option, right? Doesn't necessarily mean it has to be raw. I know a lot of my clients that I work with are actually like not ready for it, don't want to, and I'm like, dope. I'm not here to shove that down your throat, right? I'm here to know what you're willing to do, what you can do, and meet you there. And I think a lot of people are still and the mindset that kibble is, whether it's the most affordable, most accessible, the easiest, whatever the case may be, right? A lot of people still want to hold on to kibble. So what are some things that you suggest for those who can't go a fresh diet, who do still choose to stick with kibble? Because I think that's a big number of people.
Right. Oh, it is, and it will always be that. I
Yeah.
mean, the cable companies are very good at their job of marketing, so they're going to convince a lot of pet parents that this is the only way to feed your dog. So I, as one person, can't fight that battle. But what I can do is educate and give suggestions on how to boost that bowl. So the biggest thing, no matter, I don't care what kibble you feed, the most expensive, best, whatever, the lowest quality, it doesn't matter, is add hydration. Hydration is so critical. Our animals are always in a state of dehydration because, especially kibble-fed dogs, because they are eating a dry food. So can you imagine eating your bowl of
Box of crackers.
cereal with no water, no milk, no nothing, no liquid? Your body's going to be like, this is terrible. And the body needs moisture to do an adequate job of digesting. So if it doesn't have that, it's going to pull from your organs, it's going to pull from your muscle tissues, it's going to pull from everything it can to get the moisture it needs to digest that kibble. So the biggest thing I can say is make it cereal, like at least water. I love bone broth because bone broth is also filled with collagen and, it's anti-inflammatory properties. Goat milk is another great option. But at the bare minimum, just a bowl, because they'll ingest that water, and you will see that they will probably not need to eat as much kibble. And also they're going to feel a lot better. It's going to be a lot better on their digestive system. So that's the number one thing. And then also I always encourage people, what do you got in your fridge? What fresh fruits and vegetables that pretty much they can eat whatever you eat. With a few exceptions of onions and, grapes and things like that. But I am always adding stuff to my dogs. I add microgreens. I add scrambled eggs or raw eggs with the shell. It just depends on the day. Blueberries and strawberries are a mainstay for them. They get those every day for breakfast. Celery is like a superfood that people don't realize how amazing celery is. So, fruits and veggies, some of them we want to blend up so it's easier for the body to digest, especially carrots and things like that, because they don't break down. They will poop it out. And I have seen that happen. I'm like, ooh, maybe I should have chopped that up a little bit more. There's a whole little baby carrot in their poop. Oh, God.
My kiddos do that with blueberries. The whole blueberry will pop out. So now I break it in half and then I stick it in their bowl.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't seen that happen yet with my three, because I just pour them on and call it a day. But yeah, sometimes, if you see that happen, you might want to smash them up a little bit.
Yeah. My dog's, Sully especially. I don't know if you can hear him snoring. Sometimes
My gosh.
when I'm
He's so
quiet,
cute.
he's just chilling.
Aw.
When I'm quiet, my little audio thing starts lighting up when he's snoring, so he might actually be in the audio somewhere. See if I can.
That's funny.
Oh, he woke up. I was like, let me see if I can capture it. But yeah, Sally just swallows things, so I have to make sure that things are pureed
Yeah.
or broken up a little bit.
And also, if pet parents are avoidant of raw, just going back to your question on what you said about pet parents not being ready for raw, if they want to cook their food, that's okay too.
Yeah.
And I actually have helped. I create personal plans, personal recipes for each dog that, we're going through, working with me, and they don't really want a commercial diet. They want to do it themselves. Totally fine.
Hell yeah.
And do not let anybody make you scared of a complete and balanced diet, because that's a bunch of bullshit. We do not eat a balanced diet every day. When we had babies and kids, they never ate unless they were on breast milk. It was not complete and balanced. When we were like, hey, here's a hot dog and here's some mac and cheese, and call it a day.
That's not complete and balanced.
I mean, maybe that's what happened to me as a child, and probably my own kids, honestly. now with my grandkids, I'm way more neurotic because I know better. So, but yeah, you want to balance over time. You want to feed a variety of things. You want a rotation. You definitely, there was one time I just had a bunch of produce, like kale and spinach and some other veggies that were getting kind of like, just on the questionable side, like they aren't going to taste so great in a salad. So I threw everything in a crock pot and just let it cook down and made my own little like veggie elixir type thing,
That's
some bone
awesome.
broth in there and stuff like that. And that was so easy to do. And I'm like, do I do it all the time? No, because I'm lazy and I have a store that I source my
Yeah.
products from.
And
But
you're busy.
there's a lot, yeah, and there's a lot of ways that you can do that. Boost that bowl and give those nutrients and some variety and freshness to and it doesn't have to be a lot. It can be just 20% is enough to make a difference.
Yeah.
Take away 20% of the kibble and add in the fresh food, that other 20%, so you're not overfeeding your dog and
Yeah.
causing some other issues. So
Right. One of the things that makes me sad as a dog trainer, people they like to tell me, "Oh, I never give my dog people food," and they think like that's
why not?
culture has told us that that's not what the kibble companies have told us that's not what you're supposed
They
to do.
have,
And
and like I said, they're really good at their jobs.
yes. And so I tell them, I was like, I would love for you to give your dogs people food, just not from the table, right? Like, we don't want to create begging habits. But like you said, most of the stuff that we're eating is something that our dogs can eat and benefit from as well. And yeah, the complete and balanced stuff, like, I think we can have a whole podcast episode about like
Oh yeah.
why those limits, those standards are bullshit, how they get these standards is bullshit. And then how companies meet these standards is also bullshit. Kind of what you mentioned is the synthetic vitamins and minerals. Like, that is what makes those recipes complete and balanced. Like, without those synthetic vitamins and minerals, and this is going to sound like I'm hyping them up, I'm absolutely not. But without those synthetic vitamins and minerals, you're feeding cardboard, right? And that is way less nutrient dense than you putting together something that may or may not be complete and balanced as well.
Absolutely.
And then we have the problems with the synthetic vitamins and minerals, as you mentioned a little while ago. A lot of dogs have intolerances to those. A lot of people also don't recognize that we've had a lot of recalls and dogs die from too much of these synthetic vitamins and minerals being in, these dog foods. I think there was it a vitamin
Hills,
D that was too
vitamin D
high?
toxicity from Hill's Science Diet.
Yeah,
Killed
not
a
too
lot
long
of
ago.
dogs. Yep.
And it fucked up a lot of dogs and it killed a lot of dogs. But, that's what makes them the holy grail of dog food by any means.
But
Okay.
that brand pisses me off to no end. Oh my God. I'm like, hey, pro tip on that though, if you decide, first of all, the prescription diet on the bag it says intermittent feeding only. So that is not meant to be long-term feeding. However, if you are buying that expensive bag of corn, and you need to save some money, go to your Petco or wherever they sell the non-prescription and just buy that version. It's the same food. It
Right.
is the same food, just the ingredient panels have changed just a little bit. So that makes me so mad. Ooh, prescription. There's no medicine in it.
There's no medicine in that. There's
There's no
anti-medicine in there.
medicine. There's
Um,
just stuff to make you go back to the vet and pay them more money. Is what's
yeah.
in there.
Yeah. I had one
So
client who was on one of those prescription diets. It was a Royal Canin diet. That's what it was. And
yes.
those are expensive. And so I did a cost analysis. I put together something, a meal plan for the dog that was going to be, you know, helping with the conditions to why this dog was given this prescription diet. And the cost analysis was so much different. Like, it was unbelievable how much it would have been the same, right? Like,
Yeah.
and I think even feeding the raw diet was actually a little bit cheaper by like 70 cents a day or something like that. But at least there you can see, I mean, at that point now you're paying for probably the ease of not having to put together
Right.
something. But at the same time, like, you're feeding, like you said, you're feeding a bag of corn and it's just a glorified bag of corn. Whereas here you can
Right.
be knowing exactly what's going to be in that food.
Oh, for sure. They those. I always question. I always tell my pet parents. I'm like, you can't make kibble at home, right? You don't have the ingredients, whatever you can't even pronounce. You don't have those ingredients to make that kibble or the equipment or the high heat to do
Mm-hmm.
any of those things. You literally can't make it at home. So that's something to think about too. And if you don't know what it is, why are we feeding it? And,
Right.
you know, and also, and I don't know if I've already said this or not, but the chicken or the beef that is in that bag of kibble is not the same chicken or beef that we eat.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the garbage. They
Yeah.
use pet food as a garbage receptacle for our pets, and our pets are the
Yeah.
ones that are forced to eat it. So
So not only is it highly processed, right, which means our body's like, I don't know what to do with this,
low
but it's
quality.
also the shit, right? It's
Yeah.
literally feed grade. AFCO says that we can feed our dogs feed grade, right, instead of human food quality food.
Yeah.
We're feeding them the things. And I mean, this goes to say, like, I think the cows and the chickens and the goats and all those, they deserve better as well than just getting feed grade food. But it really is the hey, I got all these thousands of pounds of dead animal. What do we do with it? Let's put it
Yeah.
in a gross soup and cook it to high shit temperatures and feed it to all the dogs of America. That's what we
Yeah.
did.
And then interestingly enough, so those companies that are making that shit food and making these dogs sick are now buying vet clinics up and vet schools so that they can control the narrative. And then so then when those dogs are sick, they're like, "Oh, well, you go to our vet clinic and we're still going to prescribe a more expensive shit food." And you're going to keep coming back and you're going to keep paying those vet bills and buying that expensive food, and they're making all the money. They don't give two shits about your pet or
Yeah,
you or anything like that. So it's
care
really,
about the bottom
really,
line.
yeah, it's terrible.
You owning a pet store, obviously, you like to carry a bunch of different things, like price line, right? Like not price
Right.
line, like price points. That's the word I'm looking
Yeah.
for.
Yeah, yeah.
And you do still decide to carry kibble in your store.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
what are some of those brands that you have decided are good enough, high quality enough to have in your store, and why did you choose some of those?
So I always tell my clients that I don't sell anything I wouldn't feed my own pets. So, and that
Love
includes
that.
kibble. They may not eat kibble right now, but if I was, and I feel very fortunate that they don't have to, but if I was to feed a kibble, um, I would be okay with the options that I have. So when I look at my kibble choices, transparency is a really a big one for me. There shouldn't be anything proprietary
Hmm.
about a formula. I look at the ingredient panel and make sure there's no controversial ingredients in there like BHT or TBHQ or red dye or like all of those things that are we've known to make that aren't, you know, TBHQ is a preservative, but it's also found in jet fuel. Do we really want to feed that to our dogs?
Right.
Probably not. And then no corn, no wheat, no soy. You won't find any of those in treats, food, nothing. So I look at the ingredient panels too. And then I also look at the company's reputation. I look at their recalls, like what recalls did they have? How did they handle those recalls? Because
Hmm.
recalls happen. That's just the way it is. I mean, it's just part of the deal. Um, so if they have a lot of recalls, okay, well, they're not following their own safety standards at that point, and that's a red flag. Um, how quick are they to answer my questions that I have about their product? Do they stand behind their product? Do they say, hey, if your client or their pet does not like this food for any reason, we'll take it back. You know, that says volumes too. So that's the basics. Like it goes through a pretty rigorous test. And also, I need to make sure that I have options for those that are looking for a less expensive, because of their budget. So I want to have the best I can in that price point. So as well as, I carry carnivore, which is really not a kibble. It's a whole food nugget. So that is in place of for those that don't want to do raw or they're traveling or whatever. That's a really great fit for that. And no synthetic vitamins and minerals too. So so yeah, so I look at that. I look at their sourcing too. Where are they getting? Are they planet friendly? There's a lot of things that I think about before I bringing in kibble. And I think I only have two, like 6 or 7 lines of kibble that I carry.
Okay.
So, and
What are some of
that's
those?
not, yeah, and that's not to say there's not other good ones out there. It's just what works. So we carry Open Farm. We carry Nature's Logic,
But
Pure
you actually
Vita.
just told me that they don't have any synthetic vitamins and minerals in
No,
their formula, and that
no.
like floored me. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
they use whole foods. Nature's Logic is really great because they're reasonably priced too, which is fabulous for quality food. So yeah, Nature's Logic and Carnivore don't use any synthetic vitamins and minerals. So and I don't know that they're the only ones. There's probably a couple other out there that I just don't know. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, and then we carry Signature because Signature is great for it's low GI, so it's good for diabetic dogs. And low GI, I didn't say that right. The glycemic index is what I meant to say.
I was
So
processing that. I was like, oh,
yeah, what
GI.
what does that mean? Yeah, so they have a low glycemic index, so they
Interesting.
don't. It's good for diabetic dogs, and also great for allergy dogs too. Before I had the Glacier Peaks test, I put almost all of my allergy dogs on Signature, and they did pretty well on it because it is limited ingredient, and again, no corn, no chicken, all those known triggers. So
Yeah.
um,
Cool. There's
yeah,
options. So you don't feel
there is
despaired.
options.
It don't feel
Yeah,
despaired if you can't go cook for your dog or go raw or
no,
whatever. There are good options for you guys
yeah,
who
and I
still
do
need
carry
or want to eat
Victor.
kibble.
Victor's another one that's my economy food. Like that's probably, and honestly, I think people like that food just because it comes in giant bags. So,
Which
but
store properly. Don't just dump it
yes,
into
store
a
those
container.
property. These people buying these big bags have multiple dog households, so they go through it pretty quick.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
So, but
And
yes,
I'm sure
store
big dogs
properly.
do.
Yeah. So,
Gotcha. What are some, do you have some suggestions for people who are thinking about switching foods? I want to hear your thoughts on that because I have some of my own thoughts when we're switching foods.
um, I always ask them because there's a lot of ways that you can do that. Generally, you want to go by like the dog's sensitive. How are they with the food transition? Like some dogs can transition cold turkey and just be fine and not have any GI upset. Some need a really, like the standard 7 to 10 days transition, and some need even longer because they're that sensitive. So I always, ask them like, where is your dog at as far as food changes. Um, so you're talking kibble to kibble, correct?
Sure.
Yeah, because
There's a little bit more of a process when we go from like kibble to fresh. Yeah.
to fresh, yeah. So kibble to kibble, where you just take that transition. I always recommend a digestive enzyme. I personally use or like in Clover's Optigest. That helps the body break down and gives it some relief with a new food transition. And then just you're gonna start with a smaller amount of the new and a larger quantity of the old, and then you're going to teeter that to where it's more new and less old until you've got that. And that usually takes about 7 to 10 days for like on a general basis. It could take a little less time depending on your dog, or it could take a little bit longer.
Yeah.
So
That's usually kind of my answer is, well, it depends on your dog, right?
right.
My dogs, they can switch proteins like that,
Oh yeah.
right? Like, I like to rotate my proteins. They finish a bag of something in 2 weeks or so, and then we're switching them to something else. And my dogs are extra because, while I said I think Sully is warm, hot, Rishi I think is more on the cool spectrum. So I do just try to do them two separate proteins. And then they'll share a neutral protein every once in a while, but I do try to keep them in their own like energetics. But I'm not doing any sort of transition in between proteins or different things like that. As long as you know that your dog doesn't have an intolerance or, an allergy or
Right.
anything like that to that protein, it really is dog dependent, I feel. Some dogs are really sensitive. And if you think about it, it's because you've been feeding the same food for a really long time and their bodies don't know how to process anything different. So when you do start to kind of open up the chambers of like some change, your body will start to, in my opinion, and tell me if I'm wrong with this, but the body will also then start to learn how to adapt a little bit faster. And then you probably wouldn't need such a heavy transition period in between.
Yeah. No, that's a really good point too. Some dogs are more sensitive to other proteins. I always encourage rotational feeding, because the biggest reason is, nobody wants to eat the same thing every day, right? I certainly don't. But also, proteins don't offer the same nutrient profiles. So if you're just feeding a chicken or a turkey day after day after day, they're going to start showing some deficiencies somewhere because they're not getting the benefits of beef or the benefits of pork or fish, any of those things. So you really, rotation is key. And also, even rotating brands is a good thing too, because not all kibble brands are created equal. They don't make them all the same. So they do things a little bit differently. It is to create a more diverse microbiome, and also it just helps the dog be a lot healthier overall. So, and if there's any issues with any of those brands, they get a recall or something, you don't want to be stuck like, oh crap, what do I do now? Because Fluffy can't eat anything else because
Right.
we're going to have an explosion of diarrhea or whatever, vomiting, or they feel like crap because they're not used to, other food. So yeah, I think definitely rotational feeding is key, and it does help transition to anything else. So
Very nice. Well, that's about as much time as we have today. Elaina, you mentioned obviously with Pippa's Way that you can work with clients all over the United States. Is that all over
yes,
the
yep,
world?
I could go through the world. There might be a little language barrier, so that would be the only caveat. But yes, I can take clients from wherever. So we
Awesome.
just work through Zoom and on the phone.
Okay, cool. How can pet parents find more about you and Pippa's Way if they were interested in your services?
They can go to my store page, which is 3happyhounds.com. And three is spelled out. And then it is under, it is under Pippa's Way under services. So it will say Pippa's Way, holistic wellness.
It's a super cute
So
logo. I love it.
thank you. That is actually Pippa. She is the white lab in my logo, and she's also one of the reasons why I started this journey. So she had some health challenges that I needed a little extra support with, and as always, our dogs are teachers, and the reason why we go down these paths that we do.
Absolutely. That's for
So
sure. Well, Lena,
yeah,
thank you so much for your
you
time
are
today. Lots of
welcome.
information. I hope to have you back for another podcast episode so maybe we can talk about the
Sure.
complete imbalance bullshit, what that is.
I would love to. I get so worked up over some of that stuff.
And actually like go
I would
really
love
into
that.
depth about it because I've definitely
Yeah.
mentioned it a couple of times on a few different episodes and to like really go into like what is the actual steps that they created these standards for and like why are they actually not that great and how companies are just kind of using cutting corners to fulfill these stupid standards
Yeah.
that in my opinion are just for your dogs to survive and not necessarily to thrive.
I agree. I had my vet just asked me not too long ago about feeding trials, and she had no idea. A lot of these vets say, "Oh, we have to have these foods that are backed by feeding trials and
Right.
AFCO approved and all of that
Right,
crap."
it's the standard, it's the
And
gold standard.
yeah, and so when I told my vet what a feeding trial really consists of and why they are such bullshit, and she's just like, "Oh my God, I had no idea." And I go, "Yeah." I mean, and we can talk about that in our next podcast, but the feeding trials are a joke. They don't mean anything. And once one brand of food has a feeding trial, they do not have to run a feeding trial for any other brand or flavor or anything again. So
It all
a
just
lot
gets
of
put
people don't
under one
understand that.
umbrella. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and she had no idea. She's like, I had no idea that's how feeding trials were done.
And then that's also like the one thing that vets tell us, like you should feed what the science tells us to feed. Well, the science is also bullshit and not
Oh,
well
absolutely.
laid
It's
out and
totally
thought out.
biased. Yeah,
We'll definitely schedule that one because we
yes.
can definitely go down a good rabbit hole there.
Absolutely.
But for today,
Uh,
Elena, thank you so much.
you
I
are
wish you the best of
welcome.
luck in your store. I got to
Thank
come
you.
visit your store actually one day.
Yes. Would love
Because
that.
we always see each other in San Diego. We never actually see each other in each other's hometowns.
Nope, we're a little bit of far away from each other, but yeah. And I'll
All
come
right.
visit you too.
Yeah. I hope you guys had a good time listening to the podcast today, and we will catch you on the next episode. Adios. Now, that might be the end of the episode, but the fun doesn't have to stop here. Follow us on social media. I'd love to connect with you. We have quite a few social media platforms. For nutrition and holistic pet care tips, follow me on TikTok and Instagram at Steph the Pro Dog Mom. You can find fun training tips on Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram at Pup Pup and Away SA. If you're in San Antonio and you want to bring your dog to us for boarding, training, socialization, and nutrition, come find us. But if you're not in San Antonio, we do training and nutrition sessions virtually. Yes, they can be just as effective, I promise. Please rate, review, and subscribe to my podcast on whatever platform you listen on, and please share with a friend. The positive reinforcement of knowing people actually listen to this and find it valuable helps motivate me to keep on recording. We'll see you guys at the next episode.